He once tipped a waitress the exact amount needed to pay off her mortgage after overhearing her troubles. Elvis Presley frequently bought brand new Cadillacs for people he barely knew, sometimes moments after meeting them. Fans who were sick or facing hard times often received unexpected personal visits or had their entire medical bills paid off by the king himself. Number 10. He turned the Graceland gates into a fan meet and greet zone. Long before scheduled meet and greets became a standard celebrity practice, Elvis Presley had his own version right at the entrance to his home. Fans from all over the world would flock to Graceland, lining the stone walls and wrought iron gates decorated with musical notes, just hoping for a glimpse of the king. And more often than not, Elvis didn't disappoint. It wasn't a rare occurrence. It was practically part of the daily routine when he was home. Instead of hiding away or using back entrances constantly, Elvis would frequently drive his motorcycle, golf cart, or one of his many cars right down the driveway to the gates. He wouldn't just wave and disappear. He'd stop. He'd get out. He'd walk along the line of fans, shaking hands, signing autographs on scraps of paper, photographs, even clothing. People handed him teddy bears, letters, small gifts, and he'd accept them with a genuine smile. Eyewitness accounts from fans who were there describe him as being incredibly present in those moments. He'd ask where they were from, maybe crack a joke or comment on a sign they were holding. He listened to their stories, sometimes for lengthy periods. Imagine traveling thousands of miles, standing hopefully at a gate, and suddenly finding yourself face to face with your idol, having a casual conversation. Sometimes, these gate encounters became mini-events. He might bring out his guitar and sing a few lines of a song, often a gospel tune he loved. Or he'd introduce fans to his family members or friends who were with him. He'd let kids pet his dogs. He posed for countless photographs, leaning in, putting his arm around fans, creating memories that would last them a lifetime. Security would be present, of course, but Elvis often seemed to direct the flow, ensuring fans weren't pushed back too aggressively, wanting that connection. This wasn't a calculated PR move. It felt spontaneous and driven by a real appreciation for the people who supported him. For Elvis, the Graceland gates weren't just a barrier. They were a bridge to the fans who adored him, and he crossed it regularly. He spent hours, cumulatively, just interacting with people at those gates over the years, a level of accessibility almost unthinkable for a star of his magnitude today. Number 9. He literally gave fans the jewelry off his body. Elvis loved flashy jewelry. Big rings, elaborate necklaces, diamond-studded watches. They were part of his iconic image. But these expensive pieces weren't just for show. Sometimes, they became spontaneous gifts for fans and even strangers. It wasn't uncommon during concerts, especially in his later Las Vegas years, for Elvis to notice someone in the audience, perhaps someone singing along enthusiastically, or someone holding a special sign and make a direct gesture. He might lean down from the stage and slip a ring off his finger, pressing it into a stunned fan's hand. Imagine the gasp from the crowd, the sheer disbelief of the recipient. These weren't cheap trinkets. They were often custom-made pieces worth thousands, sometimes tens of thousands, of dollars. There are numerous accounts of this happening. He gave away rings, featuring gemstones like diamonds, sapphires, rubies, often set in heavy gold. He famously had necklaces made featuring his TCB logo, taking care of business, with a lightning bolt, usually reserved for his inner circle, but occasionally, variations or other personal pendants would find their way to lucky audience members or people he met. One story tells of him giving a valuable turquoise ring to a fan who admired it. Another recounts him tossing a piece of jewelry into the crowd, causing a frenzy, but creating an unforgettable moment for whoever caught it. It wasn't just during concerts. He might give a piece away during a chance encounter, perhaps admiring someone's own, less expensive jewelry, and deciding to give them one of his own as a compliment. He once gave a diamond ring to a hotel employee who had done him a small service. The value of the item often seemed secondary to the impulse of giving. It was a way of sharing his good fortune, a tangible way of saying thank you, or simply making a connection. He saw something he owned, someone else admired it, or caught his eye, and the next thing they knew it was theirs. For Elvis, the joy seemed to be in the act of giving itself, sharing a piece of his world quite literally with the people who admired him. This wasn't a one-time stunt. It was a pattern of spontaneous, high-value generosity involving his personal possessions. Number 8. He secretly paid off people's medical bills and debts. Elvis Presley's generosity often extended far beyond flashy gifts like cars or jewelry. He had a deep-seated empathy for people struggling with difficulties, particularly illness or financial hardship, and he often stepped in quietly to help, sometimes without the recipient even knowing initially where the help came from. If Elvis heard about a fan, an employee, or even a complete stranger facing overwhelming medical expenses, he frequently took action. He would instruct his associates to find out the details, the hospital, the amount owed, and then he would simply pay the bill, all of it. There are stories of him being in a hospital waiting room, perhaps visiting someone he knew, and overhearing a conversation about a family unable to afford crucial treatment for their child. Elvis would then discreetly arrange for the entire debt to be settled before he left. He wasn't seeking publicity for these acts. Many only came to light later, sometimes told by the hospital administrators or the families involved long after the fact. He felt a responsibility, fueled by his own humble beginnings, to alleviate suffering when he encountered it. He knew what it was like to worry about money, and he couldn't stand the thought of someone being denied medical care because they couldn't afford it. This wasn't limited to medical bills. If he learned someone was about to lose their home, he might pay off their mortgage. One famous story involves him overhearing a waitress talking about the stress of her mortgage payments. Before leaving the restaurant, Elvis left her a tip large enough to pay off the entire remaining balance on her house. He often carried large amounts of cash and wouldn't hesitate to hand over hundreds, sometimes thousands, of dollars to someone he felt needed it, based on a brief conversation or an observed hardship. He paid for funerals for people he barely knew, covered college tuition for employees' children, and settled outstanding debts for friends and acquaintances without being asked. It was a quiet, consistent pattern of alleviating financial burdens driven by a genuine desire to make a difference in the lives of people facing tough times. He used his immense wealth not just for himself, but as a tool to directly intervene and help others in deeply meaningful ways. Number 7. He was the undisputed king of giving away Cadillacs. When you think of Elvis and generosity, Cadillacs immediately come to mind. It wasn't just one or two. Elvis gave away dozens, possibly hundreds of cars throughout his life, with Cadillacs being his preferred gift vehicle. This wasn't just for his inner circle, although they certainly benefited. He gave them to family, friends, band members, and staff, but he also gave them to fans, acquaintances, and sometimes complete strangers he just met. The act often seemed impulsive, driven by a momentary connection, or a desire to share his success. One of the most famous stories involves many person. A woman Elvis saw admiring his custom pink Cadillac outside a dealership in Memphis in 1955. He struck up a conversation with her, learned she didn't have a car, and promptly told the dealership to give her one, picking out a brand new, light blue Cadillac sedan. He didn't just buy it for her, he reportedly paid for the taxes and registration too. She was a total stranger. Another well-known tale involves Elvis buying a Cadillac for himself, driving it just a few blocks, and then spotting a bank teller, Polly Coker, admiring it during her break. He walked over, asked if she liked it, and when she said yes, he tossed her the keys and said, "It's yours." He then walked back to the dealership and bought another one for himself. These weren't isolated incidents. He gave cars to backup singers, musicians, his cook, his doctor, his jeweler, and members of his security detail. Sometimes the prompt was a birthday, a holiday, or just a whim. He'd hear someone mention needing a reliable car, and the next thing they knew, Elvis was taking them to a dealership, or simply having a new car delivered to their house. He bought them in batches sometimes, ordering multiple Cadillacs in different colors. He gave away Lincolns and other vehicles too, but the Cadillac remained his signature gift. It was more than just a car, it was a symbol of the American dream, a luxury item that Elvis himself cherished, and he delighted in being able to bestow that symbol on others, spreading his own incredible fortune in a tangible, extravagant way. The sheer frequency and spontaneity of these car gifts made it one of his most legendary forms of kindness. Number 6. He didn't just buy cars, he bought houses too. Elvis's generosity wasn't limited to things with wheels. He also frequently helped people secure the ultimate symbol of stability and success, a home. While he famously bought Graceland for his parents, his real estate philanthropy extended much further, often benefiting friends, employees, and occasionally people he barely knew who were facing hardship. He understood the significance of owning a home, coming from very modest beginnings himself, and he used his wealth to provide that security for others. Many members of his inner circle, the Memphis Mafia, lived in homes either purchased directly by Elvis or heavily subsidized by him. If someone close to him needed a place to live, Elvis often took care of it. He bought houses for his father Vernon after Gladys passed away, and for various aunts, uncles, and cousins. He purchased a home for his longtime maid and cook, Mary Jenkins. He helped his Vester Presley, his uncle, who worked as a guard at Graceland, secure his home. These weren't just small gestures. Buying a house is a significant financial commitment, and Elvis did it repeatedly for the people around him, ensuring they had comfortable and secure places to live near him. But it wasn't always just for his immediate circle. Similar to his approach with medical bills or debts, if Elvis learned of someone in dire straits regarding their housing situation, perhaps facing eviction or unable to afford a down payment, he was known to step in. There are accounts of him covering rent, paying off mortgages, or providing the funds needed to purchase a modest home for individuals whose stories touched him. He might hear about a situation through a fan letter from an associate, or even encounter someone directly. His motivation seemed rooted in a desire to share his stability and success, removing a fundamental source of stress and worry from people's lives. Buying a house is a life-changing event. And Elvis facilitated that change for numerous individuals, demonstrating a level of generosity that went far beyond typical gift-giving, providing foundations for families and futures. Number 5. He gave impromptu performances for fans in unexpected places. While Elvis Presley was famous for selling out huge arenas and captivating massive audiences on stage, some of his most touching performances were small, spontaneous, and happened far away from the spotlight. These weren't scheduled concerts. They were moments when the king felt moved to share his voice directly with a few lucky fans or individuals, often in everyday settings. These impromptu moments revealed a love for singing that went beyond his professional obligations. As mentioned earlier, the Graceland gates were sometimes the scene of these mini-concerts. Fans waiting patiently might suddenly find Elvis not just talking to them, but picking up a guitar someone handed him, or just starting to sing a cappella. He often favored gospel songs in these moments, hymns like "How Great Thou Art" or "Amazing Grace," songs that held deep personal meaning for him. Imagine the intimacy of hearing that powerful voice, usually amplified over massive sound systems, singing softly just a few feet away, purely for the enjoyment of the small group gathered there. These weren't polished performances. They were raw, heartfelt moments of connection through music. It wasn't just at the gates. There are stories of him singing to fans during breaks on movie sets. If a group of admirers gathered nearby, he might wander over during downtime and sing a verse or two. He sometimes sang for hotel staff or for people he encountered while traveling. One account tells of him serenading a woman in a wheelchair he met. These weren't publicity stunts. They often happened away from cameras and reporters. They seemed to spring from his genuine love of music and his desire to connect with people on a personal level. For Elvis, singing was as natural as breathing, and sharing that gift even in a brief, unplanned way was another form of his generosity, offering something uniquely personal that no amount of money could buy: a private performance from the king of rock and roll. Number 4. He had an incredible memory for fans' faces and names. For a man who met thousands upon thousands of people, Elvis possessed a remarkable ability to remember individual fans, sometimes years after their first encounter. This wasn't just a general acknowledgement of his audience. He often recalled specific faces, names, and even details about previous conversations, making fans feel seen and valued on a deeply personal level. In the whirlwind of global fame, taking the time to remember individuals was a significant act of kindness. Fans who met him multiple times, perhaps at the Graceland gates, backaged, or at different events over the years, often reported being stunned when Elvis recognized them. He might say something like, "Hey, I remember you from Vegas," or ask about something they had told him during a previous meeting. Imagine being one face in a crowd of thousands, meeting your idol briefly, and then encountering him again months or years later, only to have him recognize you. It transformed the fan experience from one of distant adoration to a feeling of genuine connection. This ability extended beyond just recognizing faces. He sometimes remembered specific requests or conversations. If a fan had previously mentioned a personal struggle or a particular hope, Elvis might ask them about it upon seeing them again. This showed he wasn't just shaking hands and moving on. He was actually listening and retaining information about the people he met, even briefly. Members of his entourage confirmed this trait, noting his sharp memory for people and details. This wasn't about feigning interest. It seemed to stem from a genuine curiosity about people and a desire to make those interactions meaningful. In the often impersonal world of megastardom, Elvis's ability and willingness to remember individual fans stood out, making countless people feel like they weren't just part of a faceless crowd, but individuals acknowledged by the king himself. Number 3, he handed out unexpected financial windfalls, like pocket change. Beyond the organized philanthropy of paying medical bills or buying homes, Elvis was known for spontaneous acts of financial generosity that could change someone's day or even their life in an instant. He often carried thick wads of cash, usually $100 bills, and distributed them freely to people he encountered, from service workers to fans down on their luck. These weren't loans or calculated investments. They were spur-of-the-moment gifts given with little fanfare. Waitstaff in restaurants where Elvis dined often received tips that far exceeded the cost of the meal, sometimes amounting to hundreds or even thousands of dollars. If he felt the service was good, or if he simply felt like being generous, he wouldn't hesitate to leave a life-altering amount of money on the table. There are numerous stories from waiters, waitresses, bellhops, and other service industry workers who received unexpected windfalls from the king. He might hear someone mention a financial worry, trouble paying rent, needing money for car repairs, wanting to buy something special for their family, and he would simply pull out his roll of cash and hand them enough money to solve the problem, often telling them, "Go take care of it." This extended to fans he met. If someone approached him and shared a story of hardship, Elvis was known to reach into his pocket and give them cash on the spot. It wasn't always about solving a massive crisis. Sometimes it was just about brightening someone's day or easing a small burden. He tipped limo drivers hundreds of dollars for a single ride. He gave money to musicians he saw playing on the street. He covered the tabs for entire restaurants sometimes. The sheer volume of these smaller, spontaneous cash gifts is staggering. It reflected an almost casual relationship with money, where his first instinct upon seeing a need or wanting to show appreciation was simply to give directly and immediately, sharing his immense wealth in countless small but significant ways. He made special visits and efforts for sick or disabled fans. Elvis had a particular soft spot for fans who were dealing with illness or disability. He often went out of his way to connect with them, offer support, and bring a moment of joy into their challenging lives. This went beyond just donating to charities. It involved personal time, effort, and genuine compassion. One of the most well-documented examples is his relationship with Gary Pepper, a young man from Memphis who had cerebral palsy and ran a fan club dedicated to Elvis. Elvis didn't just acknowledge Gary. He developed a real friendship with him. He visited Gary at his home, spent time talking with him, bought him gifts, including a specialized wheelchair and even a car adapted for his needs. Elvis ensured Gary had access to his concerts and events, treating him with respect and kindness, looking past his disability to see the dedicated fan and friend. This long-term support for Gary conveyed a deep level of personal commitment. Elvis also made visits to hospitals, particularly children's hospitals like St. Jude Children's Research Hospital in Memphis, which he actively supported financially. He would spend time with young patients, signing autographs, talking with them and posing for pictures, bringing smiles to faces, enduring difficult treatments. These weren't heavily publicized photo ops. They were often quiet visits intended solely to lift the spirits of the children and their families. If he heard about a fan who was terminally ill and whose final wish was to meet him, Elvis often made arrangements for a private meeting, either visiting them or inviting them to Graceland or a concert backstage. He understood the power his presence could have for someone facing immense health struggles, and he frequently made the effort to provide that comfort and joy, demonstrating a profound empathy for those suffering and using his unique position to offer moments of light during dark times. Number 1. He fiercely defended and stood up for his fans. In the face of criticism or overly aggressive handling, Elvis Presley often acted as a protector of his fans. He understood the intensity of their devotion and appreciated it, and he didn't take kindly to seeing them mistreated or disparaged. Whether dealing with overzealous security or negative press, Elvis frequently spoke up or intervened on behalf of the people who supported him. During concerts, especially in the early days when fan frenzy reached fever pitch, security could sometimes be rough in trying to keep fans away from the stage. Elvis was known to stop mid-performance if he saw security being too heavy-handed. He would signal to the guards to ease up, sometimes even verbally telling them to take it easy or let them go, understanding that the fans' enthusiasm came from a place of adoration, not malice. He wanted his audience to have a good time, and he wouldn't tolerate them being physically manhandled unnecessarily. This direct intervention showed fans that he was aware of them and cared about their experience at his shows. He also defended his fans against media criticism. Early in his career, Elvis and his fans faced backlash from conservative elements of society who deemed his music and performance style vulgar or dangerous. Elvis consistently defended his audience, stating that they were good kids and that their reactions were simply expressions of excitement and enjoyment. He refused to condemn their enthusiasm, recognizing it as a key part of the energy that fueled his performances. In interviews, he often expressed gratitude for his fans' loyalty and pushed back against negative characterizations of them. He also sometimes showed protectiveness in smaller encounters. If he felt someone was intruding on a fan's moment with him or being disrespectful, he might gently but firmly redirect the situation. This protective stance created a strong bond of loyalty. Fans knew that Elvis appreciated them not just as consumers of his music, but as people he genuinely cared about and would stand up for.